Hey, welcome to CrossFit Guitars and Maya Guitars. Today I'm going to teach you how to put new strings on a guitar and do a standard setup, which I think every guitar player should be able to do it. You know, how to adjust your truss rod and clean your fingerboard. It's a major thing that I think every guitar player should be able to do. It saves yourself a lot of money and it's pretty easy. So if you followed my directions already on the PDF file included with this, then again I'm going to tell you what you need. You're going to need a tuner. I use the turbo stroke tuner, but it doesn't matter. An old toothbrush, fresh pack of strings. Now stay with the strings that you're comfortable with. I use the Dario's 010s to 46. No specific reason, I just like them. But if you want to play with 9s or 11s or any gauge what you want, stick with that because it's important with your setup on the guitar. A good old Stanley knife, a new one. 800 grit. Wet and dry sandpaper. What else? Screwdrivers. Some lemon oil. And I've got my own beeswax. Which I'm lucky enough because I'm a beekeeper as well, and what I've done here, I've used linseed oil and beeswax and mixed that together, and I use it for my fingerboards normally, but today we're going to use the lemon oil for that. Okay, well let's start it. There will be people saying that you can't take the strings off all at once because you damage the neck by taking all the tension off at once. For a guitar, I think that's a bunch of crap. For a bass guitar, it's a different story. If I would do a string change on a bass guitar, I'll do it by 2 strings at a time. Alright, there we go, all strings are off, they're going to bin. The old toothbrush comes in place. I just want to clean the nut and make sure that there's no gunk in there, because when you play there's a lot of fat on your fingers, and the grease and dirt on your fingers gets up to the into the nut and on your bridge. You'd be surprised how much junk you actually get there over a period of time in playing. Then as a lubricant, there are different products that you can use. I'll see if I've got. There's a product called Nut Sauce. It's from Big Bands, which is a oil turpentine based lubricant. You can put it on the nut slots, but I use my beeswax for that. So I get a little screwdriver, I just get a little bit out of there and try to slowly just put some of the stuff on there. Don't worry if it's too much, because you can always take it out with a rag and have that all done. Lubrication is good for when you tune the guitar up. There's no friction there, so the strings can move freely. I'll take on this Les Paul, take the truss rod cover off. It's also a good time to clean the fingerboard. Now for that I first use a Stanley knife. With a Stanley knife I use it basically as a scraper. So it goes very gently over the fingerboard and clean it up. It's the same as with your nut and your bridge. You will build up a lot of gunk. And probably if you look at your fingerboard, you see little dimples in there. Now with the razor blade or with the Stanley knife you can just easily just gently rub over it until you are at the end of the neck. Don't force it, just let it do its own job, you know. And don't be afraid that, oh, I've got a 10-inch radius on my fingerboard, and if I use this Stanley knife I will take that radius away. You can't. It's a big curve, you gotta do a lot of sanding to get it off it. So now get over there with your toothbrush again and get rid of a little bit of the dust, what you get there. Now I'll get my little piece of 800 grit sandpaper. Just a small piece like this, and fold it double. Now if your frets really have big bumps in it, there will be a new tutorial. I'm speaking here now of a guitar which is just for a setup and a restring and all that. So if there's more fret work to be done, we comment that on a later episode. So now with this one, just go gently over the frets and over the fingerboard. So basically just sand the whole guitar down a little bit with the 800 grit sandpaper. And again, toothbrush, clean it, get rid of the dust. Get an old rag, get some lemon oil, and this time I really want to put heaps of lemon oil on the fingerboard. Lemon oil or oiling your fingerboard, especially when you got a rosewood fingerboard, is very important, or an open wood fingerboard. See, I wouldn't do this with this razor, with the Stanley knife, when I had a maple fingerboard which was lacquered, because then you scrape the lacquer off. But because this is bare wood, it's important that you put oil on it, just to close the grain and make sure there's no moist going to be absorbed in it. So let it rest for a few minutes, and then you can just basically with the other cloth just wipe it off again. So now's also a good time just to give your body a bit of a clean. Yeah, so any dust or anything like that, just take it off. Alright, it's time to start putting new strings on the guitar. Oh, one other thing actually, with your 800 grit sandpaper, if you really see that your fret slot or your nut slots are really dirty, just finally just go in there and clean it. And you can do the same with your saddles. Now these saddles are not rusty or any dirty, but just go over there with the sandpaper and just make those slots clean again. You know, you will see there's some little grooves in there. Just go over it. Any dirt will interfere with your playing. Alright, restringing the guitar. strings are on, that's a good time just to tune the guitar. Now, because these strings are fresh, they still need to stretch out. So what you're going to do is just give them a little bit of a pull. So you just stretch it out a little bit. That will detune your guitar again. It's necessary. Give them a good stretch. You know, it will make your life easier once you set your guitar up. It won't detune it much anymore. Personally, when I do this, I let the guitar rest for a few minutes. Yeah, so I actually can adjust to the tension again of the strings. Because bear in mind, there's about 65 to 75 kilos of string tension between the nut and the bridge by the strings just pulling the whole guitar up. So I will give it a rest, make yourself a coffee or have a beer or whatever, but just let it rest for a few minutes. Yeah, because you took the whole strings off, the wood might have moved a little bit. It's minor, but still, you know, it's good just to get the guitar a little bit of a resting point so it can adjust itself again to the tension. Alright, we're back. So now it's time to do a truss rod adjustment. What's a truss rod? It's a metal bar like this. This is for your Music Man style guitars, and which we use on my guitars, which got the, how do you call that, ball end round thingy adjustment thing. Truss rods are basically there to help you to intonate and set up your guitar to give it a relief. Because bear in mind, there's 75 kilos of tension between the nut and the bridge, pulling the neck upwards. Now with the truss rod, you can tie it up and make the neck more flat, or give it more relief by releasing the tension. Why do we want that? If it's too straight, you'll get fret buzz. If it's too much relief, it's more difficult to play, and you will detune your guitar very quickly because there's too much pressure on the strings when you want to play a note. Yeah? Now, what's the easiest way to find out if your relief on the guitar is good? Well, I'll do it this way. You got people that come with little tools and measure up everything by the mil. I'll have a look if I got the tool here. I've got it somewhere. Now, they come with little tools like this, and they're gonna measure each string. For me, it's too much work, especially when you're on the road in front of a gig. You want to have it quickly and accurate. So the way that I do it, and it's been working for me for 20 years, is that I'll press the low E string at the first fret. I press the low E string where the body and the neck meet each other. Most of the guitars will have it at the 17th or 18th fret. So press it down there. So I'll hold it down, press it down and lift the guitar up and gently tap the guitar. And if I look and see there's a small gap between the center of that little curve, so probably here about the 6th or 7th fret, because that's the middle point then of between the 1st and the 17th fret. If I can see a small space there between the low E string and that fret, imagine if I can put a high E string in between there, I'm on the right track. The gap, if the strings are touching the fret, I've got to release some tension on the truss rod. If the gap is too big, I've got to put more tension to the truss rod. So what does it mean, putting more tension on the truss rod? You got your Allen key that comes with every guitar. This is for a Gibson guitar. Most of your Fenders will have something like this, and your Ibanez guitars, yeah, because they use a different ball. You place it on. If you want to put more tension on the guitar to straighten it out a little bit more, I'll go clockwise. So for me, that way. For you on the camera now, it looks counterclockwise, but you go clockwise. If you want to release some more tension, that means when the strings are touching the fret, you go counterclockwise. You've done that, you gotta help your neck a little bit. The way that I do, I just lift the neck up and rub it a little bit. Yeah, so you can help it back into its new position. Then, what's important, you tune your guitar again. Now, once you followed all these steps, which are in the included PDF file, just practice on your guitars. And don't worry, you can't break the truss rod or break the fingerboard or loosen it from the neck or anything like that. You know, in 20 years that I've been working on guitars, it never happened to me. And I had some truss rods which you couldn't move. This is a whole different story. You know, they might be rusted together and all that. And that's because those owners of those guitars never paid any attention to the guitars. But after you guys have watched my video, you guys are going to be good guitar players and take care of your baby. Yeah, so every time when you string your guitars, clean the fingerboard. You know, you don't have to do it all the time with the Stanley knife, but just go over it with a cloth, clean it. If you got a bare wood fingerboard like rosewood or ebony, put some oil on it. It's important to keep that hydrated. It's like with our skin. If you don't put a moisturizer on it or sunblock and you go in the sun, it dries out. Same with wood. Move your truss rod once in a while, even if you don't have to do any adjustment on the truss rod. Just move it back and forward so you don't get that it starts to corrode and starts to rust together. So in the case that you really have to change it, you can't move it anymore, at least then you give it some movements all the time. It's important just to keep all the things moving. And for the rest, the most important part is, guys, play your guitar and enjoy it. And I'll see you back with another tutorial. Catch you later.